This episode of the ZuLoo Poodcast is sponsored by ZuLoo Inc., a benefit corporation dedicated to the goal of universal access to toilets, hygiene, clean water and sanitation through the power of social enterprise. Learn more at zuloo.com.
So this says, in the late 1800s, a Frenchman used to entertain his bakery customers with farts. He could actually make them sound like musical instruments. He even performed the act on stage.
Okay, on stage it's funny. In a bakery, that's not funny.
In a bakery, it's not what you want. I'm picturing my local bakery, which is just the cutest little donut shop. It's so whimsical and fun. This big guy come out. I don't know. Maybe he's not big. Maybe he's just a little scrawny guy. But
I mean,
do you think it was an accordion? Do you think it was a trumpet?
If he can call them up on demand, I mean, that is some kind of an accomplishment.
He just needs one bite of broccoli.
Just like not by the bagels or, the croissants. Do it out.
Anything that might absorb.
Gross.
Welcome to the ZuLoo Poodcast, where we talk all things poop, toilets, and sanitation. Through insightful news, impact stories, and quirky humor, we aim to discuss and highlight the critical role toilets play in whisking poop out of our lives, the impact toilets have, or lack thereof, in the health and wellness of humanity, and what ZuLoo is doing to help solve the current global sanitation crisis.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to the ZuLoo Poodcast. Excited to have you in for another week. I'm excited to be here. Another week, another show, another new
show.
ZuLoo topic. Woohoo!
Boy, the week just flies by. I mean, after this episode comes out, it's like, oh, how many more days I got to wait?
I know.
6 whole days.
I know. So then you start going back and re-listening.
Yeah.
We've been around for about a year now.
It's been over a year now.
Yeah.
What episode? Do we know what episode number this is?
I think we're around 60-ish.
That is exciting.
Yeah.
It sure is.
So crazy, huh?
Crazy. But so much goodness and so much goodness yet to come.
After the first 4 episodes, I think we were we've talked about it all.
To everybody here.
We can't find any new guests to join us.
Poop is inexhaustible. We could talk about this for the rest of our lives.
It's really true. And everybody that we've talked to, has somebody else that they're like, oh, you got to talk to this person.
Yeah.
You got to talk to this person. So
way more people that were interested in coming on the podcast than I thought.
Yeah, just absolutely.
Our upcoming calendar, I was looking at it this morning. I'm like, we've got
booked.
It's crazy.
It's great.
So,
you're loving it.
Somebody's listening.
Somebody's listening.
Or maybe nobody's listening, but we're still talking about it.
But we got a lot to say, and so we'll just keep saying it. I love it. Well, on today's episode, one of those fabulous people Darren and I got the chance to talk to is Barbara Ikin. I don't know how to say her last name. Barbara. She's in South Africa and works in sort of a shoot off, a little vein associated with Dr. Patek's, with Sulabh International, which is Dr. Patek's company that's all about building safe sanitation in a way that is accessible and maintained by communities, and focused on education. Just so many good facets. So we'll get to hear from her.
Yeah.
It was a great chat. So, but we'll get to that later. For now,
teach me something.
I had to read us a fun fact.
Forget the poo news. We're into these fun facts.
We're into these fun facts. Well,
you've got this book. This is a book by who again? Who is this by?
Well, it says Alex Smart.
Alex Smart.
Thanks,
Alex, if you're watching, we need to have you on the show.
You need to come.
Oh my gosh, that would be so fun.
What motivated you to write this book, right? And this is there was this toilet British facts, right?
No, it's just...
No, that one right there.
Oh.
I was just overlooking
10 toilet brush.
Oh, toilet brush facts. I thought I was reading British. I'm
we
like,
do think he's British.
On.
What? The British have their own rules? Toilet brush facts.
Maybe that page very well could exist in here.
Yeah, we could probably cover a whole episode on that.
I know.
Right?
I know. Yeah.
What do you got for us out of the...
I got fun farty facts today.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay.
I know. We don't spend a lot of time on the ZuLoo Poodcast talking about flatulence, but maybe we will in the coming episodes.
Let's change that, guys. Let's make that a 2023 intention.
So this says, in the late 1800s, a Frenchman used to entertain his bakery customers with farts. He could actually make them sound like musical instruments. He even performed the act on stage.
Okay, on stage it's funny. In a bakery, that's
In
not
a
funny.
bakery, it's not what you want. I'm picturing my local bakery, which is just the cutest little
I know.
donut shop. It's so whimsical and fun. This big guy come out. I don't know. Maybe he's not big. Maybe he's just a little scrawny guy. But
I mean,
do you think it was an accordion? Do you think it was a trumpet?
If he can call them up on demand, I mean, that is some kind of an accomplishment.
He just needs one bite of broccoli.
Just like
to
not
make
by
that
the
happen.
bagels or, the croissants. Do it out.
Anything that might absorb.
Ew. Gross.
So, hidden talents.
Alex, smart. We need more information
We
on
might
this gentleman.
be looking for America's next. What's America's top?
Next fabulous farter.
No. Talent. What's the American talent show? America's Got
Got
Talent.
Talent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
America's Got
Yeah,
Talent.
we gotta see a contestant on there who can do that.
I
I
can
want
see-
to see Simon Cowell's reaction.
I could see him like Xing that right off the bat.
Yeah,
Right.
all three of them just boom.
Just like,
you're out.
no, we're not having it. It doesn't even make it to the show.
Oh man, yeah, just make it in the YouTube bloopers.
Yeah,
Mm.
the outtakes.
Yeah. Well, so there you go. You can not just burp the alphabet, you could toot some tunes. Toot tunes.
Yeah, that would be, that'd be
iTunes.
I
interesting.
They're iTunes.
I love it. Well, Darren, what's in the poo news? If you can top that, I
I
don't
can't.
know.
Let's move along.
I can't. I mean, I think I'm going to have to skip over this other article because.
Is this sad? Because you skipped a sad one.
Yeah,
last
this is a
time.
sad story. And
That's
I don't
okay.
know
Bring
how
us
to
down.
even.
Sober us up.
I'm going to bring you down a little bit and then maybe.
All right. All right.
Okay.
I'll prep myself.
Okay. Okay. Maybe I'll skip it.
Save it for another week.
I was just saying, okay, this is, it relates to South Africa because it deals with what Barbara and her work does, right?
Oh, gotcha.
They build, so we had Dr. Patek on the show and he's designed this toilet system that is, a lot of it's implemented in households, but a lot of it's also implemented in schools, right? And it's really meant to replace a traditional pit latrine,
Right.
which it's better than nothing. Pit latrines, I'm not knocking those.
Yeah, if you have
necessarily,
no other option, get a pit latrine.
but yet they're very dangerous. They're very unsanitary, and this is a news out of South Africa just a few days ago. They found a body of a 4-year-old found in a pit latrine
No.
that had fallen in.
No.
Oh.
And this is at a school where they have the pit latrines several hundred yards away from the school, and I don't know, it went missing. Right? We're talking about Anyway, I mean, I hate to bring these down, but
That was
that's
so
just,
far down.
real down.
I was
But-
not expecting that. That's
but I thought it was sort
horrible.
of a relevant story related
is.
to what all the great work Barbara is doing with their toilet systems. They're building in these schools, not just Barbara, but also we had Berger with Sanitation Ambassadors on the show, and they've got just a super awesome system where very safe, very clean, hygienic, all the 9 yards. So these tragedies like this wouldn't happen, right? And so,
Right.
anyway,
Well, and it's it's really hard to talk about, but it does need to be said that these are the realities that so many mothers, fathers, siblings face around the world, is loss of a loved one because of a tragedy like this. We often talk about disease and how lack of safe sanitation can severely harm the health of you or someone you love. But we rarely talk about instances like this where, a sanitation, what's meant to be a solution to sanitation, does have its
unintended
downfalls,
consequences.
unintended consequences. And it's just a really good lesson to all of us in this space of innovation and looking to improve, not only access, but what are the actual systems that we're using and putting in place,
right.
thinking about who's going to be using this, what might be the danger for them, how can we overcome that? How can we circumvent any possible issues so that these tragedies don't happen?
And that's why whether it's Dr. Patek's system or Berger's system, I mean, it's not only toilets, right? That's one thing, but it's safe toilets, right?
Right.
Safe and clean sanitation. That's what ZuLoo's all about. And so anyway, that with these new systems that will be a thing of the past, right?
Absolutely.
So, another news story, not as tragic as that story.
We're just sending love out to that family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that school too. That'd have been a hard thing for the school.
That'd be super hard to go through. But
so what else?
This is a woman. This is out of England again, of course.
Of course.
The Daily Mirror, which is which is true factual news, right? Says a woman traumatized by finding out her boyfriend's odd habit on the toilet.
Oh,
I'm
scared.
What is it?
But other men confess that they have the same problem.
Oh boy.
Is he masturbating on the toilet?
No.
Okay.
That wouldn't be that shocking.
I know. Maybe while you were doing something else, but
also women tend to have done this as well. They did a survey, and apparently, I guess he typically always takes his shirt off when he goes to the toilet.
Oh, that's not that weird. I've heard of people doing that.
Traumatized sounds like a
Traumatized is dramatic.
That was a little dramatic. Daily Mirror. You're just like
right.
Using sensationalism to get me to read this article.
I have heard of people doing that. They feel more comfortable, like in that process, if they're completely naked.
Exactly. That's what the article is. They say it's not uncommon for, especially and even to take all of your clothes off to go, and because it depends on. And they say a lot of people that had they found out it's more common than uncommon because they felt like, they don't want to get any poop on their clothes, especially if it's like a dramatic
piece of clothing
or a dramatic
accident. Okay.
Yeah, dramatic either way.
I'm over here thinking about the celebrities in their ball gowns.
Right. If you're at the Oscars, you got your long flowing dress. Are you going to drag that into the bathroom?
They have rolling racks for all of them to take their dresses off completely.
Yes.
You would probably take it all off.
So,
yes. Yeah. Oh, I never thought of that.
And take it all off and go do your thing and then come out and.
I'm just thinking of that Bridesmaid scene. You ever see that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's happening. It's happening in the middle of the street. She's in a wedding dress.
Oh yeah, she's like, and the wedding dress sort of covers everything.
Oh.
Anyway, so it's not uncommon, right? And some people say, they feel like they've got to go take a shower afterward. Kind of depends on
what's happening.
how
hey, different strokes, different folks. Like whatever it takes to help you feel good about the process. Taking your shit off, that's not that big a deal.
I would feel a little bizarre if I walked into a public restroom and I saw a woman come out of a stall without a top on.
I would assume she was breastfeeding.
And that's generous of you. If she didn't have an infant.
Yeah. Well, okay, she's pumping.
I'd have just been like, what you doing? But to each his own. I mean, it works out.
Anyway, so so it's not just men, it's women as well. They were talking about this lady, her friend said, I always take all my clothes off, go to the bathroom, take a shower afterward, right?
Now that just seems like a lot of work.
Yeah.
Just get yourself a bidet.
Yeah, bidet, they solve so many problems. Yes.
And they say also during the summertime, it's more common because, sometimes some bathrooms can get pretty hot.
Yeah.
Hooray for bidets.
Hooray for bidets.
Are the way to go.
It also cool you off too.
Cool you off.
On the cold setting.
Yep.
That'll wake you up.
You should go to the ZuLoo Marketplace and look up some of our bidets we got on there.
That's right. Yeah, do it. If you don't have one, get yourself one. Do it already.
Yeah.
It's 2023. Well, I love it. Let's jump into our chat with Barbara. Well, Barbara, welcome to the ZuLoo Poodcast. We are so excited and delighted to be able to chat with you today. I know this is just our first time meeting, so I'm ready, cozy in my seat for a fun discussion around the issues of sanitation. You are a board member, the operations trustee for Sulabh International South Africa. Tell us a little bit about Sulabh International South Africa. What is that? Who are you?
So we were founded in 2015 by Sulabh International in India. And it was really to spread Dr. Patek's dream of bringing hygiene and sanitation to the world. And we started off with programs with school toilets. And we had a program where we renovated a whole lot of school toilets. And we did a club thing with children to develop some leadership skills and teach them how to look after toilets and their toilets and take ownership. And then since then, we've been doing small projects around South Africa with the creche. We've also done more school toilet renovations in other areas. And then we've also now branched out into feminine hygiene or general hygiene. So we started out after COVID distributing hygiene packs, and then we branched out into feminine hygiene products. So basically, in a nutshell, we are a small little organization, and we're trying to do projects where we can bring hygiene, sanitation, and water to people that need it.
Love that. So important. And I've never visited Africa. I've never been to South Africa. I'm wondering, and I'm guessing a lot of our listeners haven't either. I'm wondering if you can give us an idea of what sanitation issues look like where you're at, where you're operating.
So it's actually not good in South Africa. We have our modern areas, which are first world, and everybody has a toilet, everybody's got a house. But we've got a lot of informal settlements, and the toilet situation in our informal settlements is horrific. We've actually partnered with an organization to try and build the first public toilet facility similar to what they have in India, where the community takes ownership of the toilet complex. But it will be the first public toilet facility that is clean, hygienic, and easy for people to use and safe. Because right now you have the municipality has provided toilets, but they're not well kept, and they're usually vandalized, and they're on the outskirts of these informal settlements. So you can imagine women and children having to walk in the middle of the night to beyond certain areas and use those toilets, which don't work most of the time. We also have issues with schools, that we still have many schools that have pit latrines, which are just, we call them long drops, where there's just a hole in the ground. And we've actually had incidents where children have drowned in those pit latrines. So exactly, and we still have them at schools. And then we have other extremes. There's a school we're working with in near Pietermaritzburg. They've got 700 children using 10 toilets. So 10 toilets for boys and 10 toilets for girls now. If you're on a break, there's no way you can get to those toilets. So there's a huge problem here on sanitation issues. And the problem is too, what we discovered in our project is that you build a toilet and it's not well taken care of. So I think it's a very unattractive subject for a funder to go to them and say, we need to build a toilet facility, because they've been scarred by building capital or spending money on capital investments. And so, yeah, it's where we are.
I noticed on your Barbara, on your website, you guys talked about 83 or so some odd schools that you guys have installed toilets. And what do those toilets look like? Are they a typical toilet that you would normally see in a first world city, or are they more eco-friendly toilets? What kind of systems are those, or do they vary?
So we initially renovated toilets that were already on a municipal sewage structure. So those were easy. It was just a renovation of the building and providing toilets that were of the same, like you and I would use. Where we did change was with one school, and I'm very proud of the school, because those toilets are still fully operational, and a lot goes towards the leadership. But we used the Sulabh technology of the composters, because they didn't have access to the sewer system. So we used 8 composters there, and it's a beautiful toilet complex. But yeah, they're normal toilets. We haven't branched out into the eco-friendly systems yet, except to use the Sulabh technologies. We've been exploring that, and we still are. But they're very expensive if you're using on-site chemical solutions.
Well, I was just going to say for our listeners, because Sulabh especially Sulabh South Africa, is a smaller subsect. I was wondering if you can educate us a little bit on what Sulabh technologies are. When you reference that, explain what that is for our listeners.
So Dr. Patek actually brought these technologies to India. And so the basic technology is, and we call it technology, but it's basically 2 composters in the ground with on top of the ground being an absolutely normal toilet. Okay, and then underground you get 2 channels that feed into these twin composters. So the one composter then is used, it's open, and the waste goes in there. And when that fills up, you close it off, and it's closed off for 2 years. And then it decomposes, and they at the toilet museum in India, you can actually see that it's like fertilizer. It's clear and it doesn't smell. It degrades completely. But the design of the composter is such that it's a honeycomb system. And yeah, it's just worked all over India. And then while that one's closed, you use the other composter. So they alternate. And it's worked really well. You've got to have some space to build the composters because they're quite big. But very safe, hygienic, completely different to a septic tank system. There's no gaseous air left out into the air. There's also no attraction of flies and cockroaches. It's an amazing. So we call it the Sulabh technologies. And then another amazing feat is the biogas that they've built onto. If you visit the Sulabh International head office in India, they've got a biogas plant that produces methane gas for cooking. And so those are the technologies.
That's so cool. I mean, I'm just learning about this. This is my first time. I'm in our same boat as most of our listeners. That is incredible and amazing. And I'm just thinking of the sheer size of those composters and thinking to be able to switch to one, the other, like to have that function for 2 years while the other one is, degrading. That's just incredible. And incredible that it's eco-friendly, incredible that it's reusable. Wow. Okay. Sorry to derail us. Thank you for educating us. Darren, let's get back to what you were going to ask.
I've got this photo. I went to the World Toilets Museum back in 2019, and I've got photos. And we'll put this up, but we'll put this up on when we do the episode. But yeah, you basically got these 2 different. I guess would a pit be a way to describe it, right? The 2 different container systems, and then you wait till one fills up, and then you close it off, and then you have the other one, right? It's sort of a dual system, right? When we're talking about how the technology works.
Yeah. So it actually is a pit, you're right. But in South Africa, we call it a composter because of the negative connotation of a pit. Then they think
right. Your typical. It's not like a vault, concrete vault toilet that you have to pump out, right? If you've ever been to a national park in the U.S., you know what those are like, and people. Yeah, we've got stories of people jumping down in there and never coming out, right? So it's we can talk about danger to children and things like that. A pit toilet is a very dangerous thing, whereas this is you've got all the. It's not like something you could actually jump down into. It's covered, right?
Yeah, so they've got concrete slabs over each composter, and there's no way a child can lift that. You need at least 4 men to lift that. And there's no danger of that. And the toilet above the ground is, of course, a normal toilet or a squat latrine if you want.
Maybe could you share with us how you got connected with Dr. Patek? Am I saying his name right? Patek? Is that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, how I went over there I didn't know who he was until I just saw World Toilet or Toilet Museum, and I'm like, hey, so we got to stop here and we got to check this out. And of course, it's a very well laid out and very detailed exhibition as to how the different technologies work, how they can be adapted to different cultures and different situations. And then, of course, he had lots of different other sorts of examples of toilets over the years. It was just a great if you're going to India, you can. Taj Mahal is great, but you definitely need to put the toilet museum on top of your list. So, but maybe you could share with us how you got connected with Dr. Patek in the beginning, and then obviously, he's bringing that to South Africa. Maybe you can share with us a little bit of the history of how you got involved with him and all of that, if you don't mind.
Sure. So Dr. Patek's history is amazing. He's an amazing person, and he has been revered in many places just because he's so caring and giving. So he started out doing research in the slums of India, and it's a particular area. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the name, but he lived amongst the, in India, they used to call them the untouchables. They're not called that anymore, but that's at the time of what they were associated with. And they had to go and clean the toilets of the richer people. And there's even pictures of these people walking with baskets of waste on their head, and the poop is just running down their faces. And that's why they were considered untouchables. And he lived amongst them, and he did his research. I think it was for a master's or PhD. And he, and so he decided and he vowed that he would make a difference for these people, and no one would ever have to clean a toilet like that again. And that's when he researched the technology. So in India, they've built toilets throughout. I stand corrected, but there's over 6,000 complexes that they've built in the slums of India. And they brought about a pay and use philosophy where people pay to use, those that can afford, and that keeps the toilet systems running and helps to build more. And that's worked really well in India. And plus, rural toilets are built for people living in rural areas using the composter system. So he's done amazing work. He's built Sulabh International to be one of the largest NGOs in the world and employing a lot of people to do the work. So they've done all this work in India, and I think there was talks, Kumar Dirk, who's now the president, and Dr. Patek's son, knew someone in South Africa, and they decided to start off in South Africa because of the connection. And so Sulabh International was started in South Africa and founded, and I then joined in 2018. And it was because my husband was on the board, and he was, they were looking for someone who had worked in the NGO space, and I'd worked for the Hospice Palliative Care Association before that. So I was able to come in and help get the systems in place. And I went onto the board myself. My husband left the board, and now I've stayed on ever since.
Back when you were getting your MBA, did you ever imagine that you would be in the toilet space? Is that a dream of yours, or?
Never. It kind of found me, and I still always shake my head when I see myself in this position, because I just never would have dreamed I'd be in sanitation, because health was my background. But it's certainly a very needed space, and there's so much we can do. I just think that there's not enough attention given to it, and that's my struggle, is to try and get more attention for it in South Africa.
What would you want our listeners to know about what's happening in South Africa, and maybe some ways that they could? Are you just trying to bring awareness, or do you have specific projects that you guys are pursuing that you'd want people to know about?
So we are pursuing projects. At the moment, we've got two main projects going, and the one is to bring. So we have a lot of girls at school who don't have access to feminine hygiene products, and that makes them miss days at school. And so we've partnered with an organization that creates that manufactures reusable sanitary towels and panties. So we now have started this program where we can provide schoolgirls with those products that they can reuse. So that's one of our projects, and we want to spread it out to more and more schools in rural areas, in poverty-stricken areas. And then our other project is to carry on working with schools and early childhood development centers to bring them toilets. And if they don't have water, to make sure that they have some way of collecting water so that they do have toilets and are able to wash hands, etc. So at the moment, we're working with a school in, as I mentioned, outside Pietermaritzburg, who have only 10 toilets, and we want to start working with them to bring them more toilets and start off there and then grow from there. The other thing that we're working on is trying to bring water to communities that don't have. So there's a community just outside the Western Cape, and they have no access to water, and we've partnered with an organization called Hippo Roller. I don't know if you've heard of them.
No.
So they've manufactured a big container for water that contains 90 liters that you can take and fill up, and then it rolls along the ground instead of having to carry it to your household. So you've got 90 liters. So those are our projects, and we'd really welcome any help.
That sounds great. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about menstruation and women's hygiene, Kelsey is I can hear her jumping right in, right? Kelsey, are you?
Yeah.
She's all over this topic.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the sheer workload that all three of those projects are, right? They're issues in and of themselves. And while they're interconnected, it's truly the scope of responsibility that falls on sanitation workers, that falls on anybody who sees the sanitation problem. I mean, it's so large. And to think that, just going back to these numbers you've mentioned, Barbara, of 700 students using 20 toilets. I mean, that's insane to me. It's appalling to think that so many children, even in a place where they're going to be educated, you would assume that this is something that can be accessible to them, and a restroom, right? Somewhere where they can go to relieve themselves so that they can go back to school and focus on their studies. That's what they're going to school for. Is not a possibility. Here in the States, we typically take that for granted. Most of our public schools have functioning, albeit not the cleanest, but functioning restrooms. And I think that it's a problem, that so many people just aren't aware of, or they don't quite understand the magnitude of it, not just of the implications of what does that mean when a school-age girl doesn't have access to hygiene, or what does that mean when a high schooler can't step out for 5 minutes and use a toilet because they're all being used and they don't have hours to wait in line. Well, it means less education. Well, it means less access to opportunities because they weren't able to fill their education, or because they missed time in school. It means just missed career opportunities and economic growth, both for families and individuals. And I could go on and on and on about all these things, but our listeners are here and they're aware of those. And so as Sulabh International South Africa looks to grow, I'm just thinking about those families that are impacted. And it sounds like there's a lot going on in the public arena. What does Sulabh International do for families? Because that's another sphere in which, right, the sanitation problem really affects individuals. Is we can do community toilets, they work okay, but what about families and individuals?
So right now we're not working with families as such. We're working mostly with children because we feel that's where we can make the biggest impact. However, when you look at the family, if we build a school toilet, for instance, we involve the community around the school toilet. So what we've learned from our lessons of the 85 school toilets that we've renovated is that it's all about leadership. So the headmaster of the school has to take ownership of that building because we're not there to guard it. But on top of that, the community has to. So the community has to be protective over that building, that school, to make sure that nobody vandalizes, and also to make sure there's janitors and people in the community available to clean the toilet. So that's a big issue with sanitation, is how do you maintain that structure? How do you still give toilet paper? How do you still give soap? Because that's what you need. And that's why ZuLoo International uses the pay and use facilities, so that the toilets actually sustain themselves. And that's a very good concept. But in South Africa, we're very far away from being able to bring that in, because our culture is not such that why should we pay for something that the state should provide? So it's very difficult to implement that. So in terms of communities, we still have a long way to go. And you hear we've only got small projects going. And the reason being that sanitation, as I said, is not an attractive subject for a funder. To write a proposal and say we are working with a school to build and renovate these toilets, it's far more attractive to work on the school curriculum and education, because there's no guarantee that the toilet's going to be sustainable. And so those are the things we have to really look at as a sanitation community. How do we make it a priority? And how do we get people to buy into the fact that their toilet facility needs to be sustained? And the only way it can be sustained is if the community gets involved and people take ownership.
Yeah, having to convince people that something's going to be good for them is really hard, because people are really stubborn. Or trying to convince, potential investors, people who can provide funding, government, private investors, whatever it is. It's difficult to say, listen, I know this isn't a glamorous topic. I know you don't want to put it on your website that you help kids get access to a toilet, because the word toilet in itself has a lot of, the mind just carries itself away with unpleasant images. But to say, no, look at the important impacts that this has is equally as important. And I just need to take a moment and say thank you, Barbara, for the work that you're doing, for the work that the people involved in Sulabh International in South Africa are doing, because it is just a person by person battle, right? To convince, to educate just one more person. What is the sanitation crisis? What do the problems look like? I'm so happy now to know a little bit more about what some of the sanitation situations are that your rural communities are facing, because I think of South Africa and I think highly developed, first world, just like where I'm at. How could the problems, maybe they equate to some of the mass homeless communities that we have, but no, it's very different. And so it's important. I've learned something. It's just important to keep going person by person. And I guess on that note, I'm just thinking, what is the thing? What is your go-to, Barbara, that you tell people when they ask, what do you do? How are you personally going one by one and fighting this battle? Because I just have the sense that you are all in on it.
So you're right. It's not something everyone wants to hear. And when I do say, I work for ZuLoo International, they go hazy-eyed because it sounds like such a foreign name. And then I do explain. But my go-to is that I just have such a strong affiliation with Dr. Patek and his family and what they've done in India. And I really pray that we can replicate what they've done and further Dr. Patek's vision in Africa, not just South Africa. I feel sometimes that we let him down because we are so slow in progressing, in getting projects up and running. But like you said, it's making the difference to one person at a time and one school at a time, and just to keep the momentum going. And I believe eventually the momentum will pick up. So that's my dream.
Well, it is a domino effect, right? The only reason that ZuLoo is around, that we're able to do projects, is because of an author, Rose George. She took on this exploration adventure of exploring the world of sanitation, and Darren, by happenstance, picked up her book in an airport, and it changed Darren's perspective. It changed his outlook because he was educated about the world of sanitation and the need, and he felt, and I'm speaking for you, Darren, so you'll have to correct me if I am getting any part of your personal history
it's all
wrong.
True. Whatever you're saying is true. True story.
But it changed your outlook, did it not? And you felt this need to make a difference and that this was the way to be really impactful. And so I don't think that you're letting anybody down, Barbara, because projects, while they're slow to start, can just explode at any minute, right? It just takes the right person. It just takes the right organization. It just takes convincing the next person. And I suppose that's more what I mean by one is we just never know in what direction it's going to go, but trusting that it's going to continue to improve. I have all the faith in the world in it. And I'm thankful to be a part of ZuLoo in that way. So I'm like getting on my soapbox now. So I'm going to say we do have to wrap up. We're out of time, but I wanted to just ask Darren if he had any last minute questions or comments for you, Barbara, before we end our conversation for the day.
I just wanted to say thanks. Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking to me.
Go ahead.
So I'm just gonna say thank you for what you guys are doing. It's an amazing feat, and it's such a refreshing way to address hygiene and sanitation. And it's lovely that you've got this podcast, and I hope you also grow from strength to strength because it's important.
Yeah, we hope to have Dr. Patek on really soon. And, when we first started the podcast, we were wondering, well, who the heck's going to be interested in coming on? And right off the bat, we had Jack Sim like, yeah, I'll come on. And, and we've had just some really, what we feel is really stellar, world-class people. I mean, Dr. Patek, winner of the Gandhi, is it the Gandhi Peace Prize? Is that the name of it? And just has done just amazing work. And it's really, the more people we meet, at the World Toilet Summit, obviously, and other places, we're just, we don't feel like we're alone in this. And we appreciate our association with you. And yeah, we look forward to developing further relationships and working together to help address the issue. But thank you for coming on today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Hey, Barbara, just such a calming presence to be in. Somebody who knows what she's doing, knows what she's contributing to. And I just have all the confidence in her ability to direct, that vein of Sulabh International. This is something that she's really pursuing that's important and in a new area. I mean,
it's another example. I mean, most of the people I run into that are in the space, they didn't plan to be in this space. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's got an MBA degree. She's doing things, and somehow, something or other, she meets Dr. Patek and gets involved in that, and just is making a huge difference in these schools in South Africa, and just going at it, which is awesome.
I know, she's a superstar. Grateful for her, right? Grateful for her being faced with the opportunity, faced with the decision, right? Being presented with the opportunity to move into sanitation, to move into directing the space and working with people in WASH, and saying yes to that. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that people all over the world have been presented with similar opportunities and have chosen other paths, which is great. But sanitation has a funny way of encircling
you don't find
us.
Sanitation finds you.
Exactly. It finds you. Well, Barbara, thank you for your time. If you're listening to this, thank you for the work that you do with Sulabh International and in your other projects. And we look forward to following along. And same with our listeners. I'll just go ahead and speak in behalf of all of you listening. Hope that you'll check out all the good work Barbara's doing. And we're just thankful that you were here. So we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the ZuLoo Poodcast. Follow us on social media at our links in the show notes below. To learn more, visit our website, ZuLoo.org. If you liked the podcast, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment. For even more ZuLoo fun, send us an email with your toilet stories to podcast@zuloo.com for a chance to be featured on the podcast. This episode of the ZuLoo Poodcast is sponsored by ZuLoo Inc., a benefit corporation dedicated to the goal of universal access to toilets, hygiene, clean water and sanitation through the power of social enterprise. Learn more at zuloo.com.